We will be talking about RDS in 2018, 40 minutes, so compressed content. Let's see how far we get. My name is Bennett Rich, and
if you could, can't hear you at the back.
You can't hear me in the back?
Some people can't hear you clearly.
They're so drunk.
No, I can't believe that, because it's easier because I need my hands, you know? Yeah, I really
come
do.
up.
I try to be. If you can't understand me, please let me know so I use the mic. But this is not going to be as exciting for me if I use the mic because I really need my hands to act. And so most of my times I work for FS Logic, so like 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. This is my primary customer right now. I'm self-employed, I'm independent. And I work with a couple of community guys in Team RGE. We built the analytics tools for benchmarking, Rex Analytics. And I work with RDS gurus and some of the pure RDS projects. And this session today is a lot about the pure RDS story. So why do we need RDS in 2018? Isn't it an outdated technology? What were the highlights with Server 2016? And what is the RDMI infrastructure? What is Admin Center? We're going to take a brief look at the remote desktop clients. And then we're going to take a look at Win 10 as remote desktop and RDS 2019, so the upcoming server version. Right, so why do we need RDS in 2018? And it's still the same story as we always had. Basically, it's the question about, do we take a private jet or are we using a regular airplane and an economy seat? Well, everybody would agree that we would prefer using a private jet. Most of us cannot afford it, so we are flying economy class in a standard airplane. And to be honest with you, remote desktop services is pretty much about the same thing. I know hardly any user or customer that really wholeheartedly loves remote desktop services. Because it's something like, yeah, taking an economy seat airplane seat or riding a bus. It's not very glamorous doing something like that. But on the other hand, we cannot afford the other thing. So for several reasons, it's too expensive, it's too complex to manage in our case. So we prefer our customers to convince to use RDS. Good. So that's the reason. And there's a commercial aspect to it. It's like selling trucks, selling buses. Again, you will never see huge advertisements about buses. You will see the coolest cars in the ads, but not the buses. But if you look at the sales numbers, many of these organizations and companies and manufacturers, they make good money with buses. And this is the same here. So Sean shared with us yesterday that they are generating 1.5 billion revenue with Horizon in VMware. So altogether, if I just add the numbers of the big three, we have like a $5 billion market only of the core platforms. Now add all the ecosystem around it. So we have a $2-figure billion-dollar business. This is too much to be ignored. And we have this ecosystem around it, like Parallels, like Frame, WorkSpot, MyCloudIT, and all these companies that start getting more and more traction in the market. So there's a reason for that. And we have the problem, the number of the 4 to 8 million apps that are out there. Sean came up with a number a couple of years ago, and we were using it ever since. I have no idea how he put it together. Maybe we can ask him. But the thing is that we have millions of Windows apps out there, and we thought that they would go away, and that we have something that is called a long tail, where we only need to maintain them. And we thought that we were long past that period where we have more than 50% Windows applications, and that we're already in such a phase where we're fading out the Windows apps and are finally in this long tail period. No, this is not the case. When we do the survey within our customers, we find out that it's way more than 50% of the applications that are still Windows apps. And the reason is that Microsoft completely failed providing a development platform that was stable enough and good enough so that customers and partners and developers would migrate their standard WinForms and Win32 applications over to any of those. Just remember Silverlight. Microsoft tried to convince everybody to move to Silverlight. Silverlight does not exist anymore. So customers and partners have invested millions into a technology that went away as soon as they had their products ready to be released. And I know developer MVPs that are so frustrated because their customers sent them away because they say, whenever you enter the room here, it's going to cost us millions. And we've done that 3 times. And every time we had the app ready, Microsoft decided not to continue the platform. So if you leave our building, we're going to save a lot of money. And so developers are really frustrated about that. So it's not that Windows apps are so great. There is no real good alternative. Now we're seeing some HTML5 things coming up, and that could be the future. But let's wait and see if it can fulfill what they promised with that. So what were the highlights? I don't want to walk you through a standard RDSH environment or RDS environment, but what was the innovation at the time? They increased performance at Microsoft, the RDS team. They enhanced scalability and optimized it all for the cloud. So the increased performance was primarily around graphics improvements, and the enhanced scale was about connection broker. I'm going to cover that in a minute. Here is the graphics piece of it, and many of you have seen this picture. So there's a range of options that you have. It's the bare metal thing that we all know when the GPU is running on a laptop, like I have my laptop here with a GPU. Even your mobile phones all have a GPU built in. It's not a full flavor GPU, but it's something that helps you to decode videos you're streaming from YouTube, for example. Without the decoder, it wouldn't work. So you have GPUs like everywhere, except for our remoting environments. So most of the remoting environments, the hosts don't come with GPUs these days. So Microsoft was trying to fix that because Windows 10 relies on a GPU. So Windows 10 doesn't work without a GPU, simple as that. So how can you run it on a platform that does not have a physical GPU? Microsoft emulates the GPU. So they're using the CPU to emulate the GPU, which is not, well, very powerful from a performance perspective, but it makes it easy. Oh, I don't know if that's going to work. It makes it easier for the developers because they take it for granted that there is a GPU. It simplifies their dev model. Okay, so we have this emulating thing also in a remoting environment. Microsoft calls that WARP. You can search for the acronym. It's a weird acronym that they came up with in the dev team at Microsoft. So what they do is they emulate the GPU also when you're remoting. And then the other thing is, and this is what most people use, and they're not very happy about the performance. And the other thing that was introduced with Server 2008 R2 was Remote FX, where they are sharing the GPU, but they're emulating some of the calls. Basically, they're filtering graphics calls, and they're sending those filtered graphics calls to the GPU. And it depended on how good the filter is, some of the API calls work or they don't. At the beginning, there was no support for OpenGL, so you were seeing an error message as soon as you were using the Remote FX in this mode. And that was a big problem. It still is a big problem because user experience sucks. Then they introduced pass-through. This is discrete device assignment, which basically allows a VM to use a GPU exclusively. Okay, so that is one way of dealing with it. And then there was NVIDIA with their grid technology that they introduced, and it was real GPU virtualization. Now, the thing is that Microsoft never wants to be dependent on one vendor, external vendor. Even though we all know that right now NVIDIA provides the fastest and best and GPUs in the world, Microsoft said, hey, but maybe we also want to allow customers to use GPUs that are not as good, but good enough for certain use cases. So they may be working on technologies that kind of go into this direction with the GPU virtualization, but independent of any of the vendors. This is hard to do, and I wonder if they will release something anytime soon that will be able to cover that. I have no idea if that's going to be included in Server 2019 or not. I know that this is work in progress because we were talking to Microsoft over the last years that this is something that we really want to have. And maybe you talk to Jared about how close Microsoft and NVIDIA are working together on that. It's really hard to get that information from AMD and from Intel, because these are the other two. And for those of you who have never seen the remote effects and discrete device assignment difference, so on the left side we have this remote effects idea. So you have a remote effects GPU driver, and this GPU driver catches all the calls and forwards it to the parent partition. The parent partition comes with the driver to the GPU and forwards the calls to the GPU. So every graphics call goes through the parent partition, and then it goes to the real physical GPU. While if you have DDA, yeah, you're punching holes in the hypervisor, so the hypervisor host does not see the GPU anymore. You sort of hide it from the host machine, and you give the guest machine access to this physical device. Wow, Microsoft at the beginning said we're never going to do that because we risk the stability of our hypervisor, because now we give a guest system, a VM, physical access to a piece of hardware in the server. And what if it does something stupid? Are we going to crash the entire hypervisor? In the end, they have implemented it because there was so much pressure from the market that there was no way out for them. Good. Now let's talk about the cloud. So they did some design improvements at Microsoft. They decided that they want to combine roles, that they have automation. And look at that, improved performance. Suddenly they have up to 10K simultaneous connection requests that they are able to cover. We always ask ourselves, why didn't it work in the first place? And the MVP community always guessed that there must be a bug. And as a matter of fact, there was a bug. And it took them more than a year or two to find out what the bug was. And finally came to us and said, oh, now we improved performance by a magnitude. And we were all like, by a magnitude? Like from 10 to 100 or from 100 to 1,000 or something? And yes, this is what they did, and it was a bug. They confirmed it. So now they released the better code, so there is no real limit in terms of scalability from the underlying engine. That's the good news here. But if you run all that in Azure, you have certain limits. So we did that, Thomas Crampy, a fellow CTP, and we ran some tests in Azure for Synergy, and we were trying to build Citrix Cloud environment and putting Synapse servers in there, which is built on top of the RDSH role. And so suddenly we ran into certain limitations. This subscription is at capacity for total regional V CPUs. Wow, CPUs? So what's wrong here? So we got the error message, and then Thomas received an email that said, oh, unfortunately you reached capacity limits. And I mean, we were not trying to install thousands of servers. We were just trying to install like 2 or 3. And we reached capacity limits? Oh my God, this is cloud. What did I get wrong about the cloud? I thought I could just put stuff in the cloud and it's infrastructure as much as I want to have. No. So there are Azure limits, and one of the Azure limits is VMs per subscription, 20. That is the limit. If you want more, you got to write an email to Microsoft support. Please, can I have more VMs? Now, just imagine you're running, you're really doing this lift and shift of your data center to Azure. Wow, better talk to Microsoft before you do that, because they need to make sure that you don't hit a hot limit and receive emails or error messages like these. And there's another thing, Office 365 and RDS. Everybody thinks, hey, we have a Microsoft product which is remote desktop session host, and now we put another Microsoft product on top of that, which is Office 365. Wonderful. But if you read the blog article that Microsoft published only in February, it's very clear that this is not a well-supported combination. Oh, why is that? Oh my God. We recognize that some of our customers deliver Office to their users via remote desktop and VDI. Yes, please. It's exactly what we do. Later this year, Microsoft will deliver new remote desktop and desktop virtualization capabilities within the semi-annual Cadence release of Windows 10 Enterprise and Windows Server. What does that mean? It means that right now, if you combine these two things, long-term service branch with your server, and Office 365, which is an agile application by definition, it's not a supported combination. Huh. What does that mean? You run this combination and you call Microsoft support and they hang up because they say it's not supported. This is the worst thing that can happen to you. Just keep that in mind. Microsoft is touring Europe right now, meeting with all their key customers to keep them informed about this fact that they published in February. So make sure that you are supported with the stuff that you deploy. If your upper management decides, together with a Microsoft sales rep, that your entire organization is going to go to Office 365, well, please inform them that Microsoft needs to make sure that they support this platform. The sales rep from Microsoft will not inform you about this fact because they want to sell Office 365 licenses, because all that matters for Microsoft right now is Azure consumption. Good. So, what are we going to see in the cloud in the near future? It's remote desktop modern infrastructure. How does that work? Who has heard about that? Okay, so most of you are aware. Who has tried it out? Oh, one? Wonderful. Two? Three? Okay. That's, oh, four. So that's wonderful. The idea is that Microsoft thought, hey, what if we provided the entire backend as a cloud service, as an application service, like platform as a service, rather than infrastructure as a service? So they don't want to put it on VMs, because VMs are expensive when you run them in Azure. So why not just provide an application service that you can sign up for and use it as you wish? So they decided that they want to put the connection broker, the license server, the database, everything into a separate non-domain joined group, and then allow the workers, the resource plane, to connect to it, and well, separate those two. You will still need VMs, you will still need the RDSH servers, but all the management, all the brokerage, everything is handled from a separate sort of entity. And that is the idea. And if we look at it, how it's implemented in reality, okay, they refactored all these roles that we have on Windows Server to application services, like the RD Web, RD Gateway, RD Broker, the SQL Server database. They put it all into this box, and they added an agent. So if you see here up there, there's a little A now. So for those who are Citrix folks, that's basically a VDA. For those that are VMware guys, that's a Horizon agent that you put on the RDSH machine. And since you can also put it on a Windows 10 machine, it eliminates the necessity to have an underlying hypervisor that plays well with that. So basically the role remote desktop session virtualization goes away and is replaced by this agent. Oh wow, Microsoft learned after all these years that it's possible to implement an agent that does that. Okay, so they added diagnostic services because they need to find out who's using all that. Good. And they're using user profile disk. Oh, wonderful. That's great news for FS Logics because it's not going to work. Wonderful. So this is the basic infrastructure. So you see, these services are not domain joined. So how can the user log on? The user logs on, or the client authenticates against Active Directory in the resource plane, and then things are redirected. So you can use all the security features that come with Active Directory, and what happens then, as soon as the client connects and the agent has registered itself as a valid resource in the control plane, so then the authentication takes place, click, and the broker from that information determines where the user can go. So the information is sent back, and then the connection goes through RD Web. RD Gateway does the SSL thing, and the broker orchestrates the connection so that the user connects to the resource that is available for this particular user. Right now we're only talking about one tenant, but we're going to add more tenants. So this is why this is important information, how the connection flow works. So what happens with security? The good news is that the resource plane is connecting the control plane and not the other way around. So it's impossible that the control plane does something with the resource plane, with the workers, without being, without having the permissions. So it is like, don't call us, we call you. And this is the method that they're using. So it only is a one-directional connection. And then the bidirectional connection is, the communication is established only after the resource plane allows that. And there are no inbound ports that are required to open. That is very important from a security perspective. And here it comes, the multi-tenancy. Now you have the option, because this side here and these two, they are not connected from a domain perspective. They're completely isolated from each other, which means you can use this here for multiple tenants. And Microsoft's goal is that one tenant can be down to only be one user. So that is the idea. Good. So you can check that out in the slide deck if you want to. I just want to make sure that you understand how it technically works. And Microsoft extends this platform by APIs and PowerShell. This is the important news, that you can use your own portal, for example, to consume some of the functionalities that are provided through the control plane. And you can add third-party applications or third-party consoles that are managing that all. This is the very important information. And the thing is that Microsoft keeps preaching to use RDMI for that. Keeps preaching that RDMI is controlled through the new Project Honolulu. It's the new name is
Admin server.
Admin server, admin center, admin center. Yeah, and this is the important thing to know. This screenshot here is from the from Azure, from the web console. But long term, they want all these functionalities also to be manageable through Admin Center. I have a video. If I have time in the end, I will run the video of RDMI. We recorded the RDS Gurus reference environment, but I want to make sure that I'm able to cover all the topics before I run that demo, because this is something that Frank and I have demonstrated before. We have recorded new videos, so we can make that available for you if you want to. So this was that thing here. Now, moving over to the Admin Center. Who has installed the Admin Center? You like it? No? Okay. So let's take a look at it so that other people see what I'm talking about. So this is Admin Center. The interesting information here is I needed to start Google Chrome to be able to start Admin Center. Why is that? It's an HTML5 front end, and Windows Server only comes with IE. IE is not compatible with that flavor of HTML5. So when you try to start it right after deploying the server, well, the web page says, oh, you need to install a proper browser to do that, which is fair. But the problem is the other proper browser that they suggest is Edge. Has anybody tried to install Edge on a Windows Server 2016? It doesn't work. You can't. So Chrome is the only one that works, and that makes it a little bit. Well, it's a weird thing. The problem with this application, with this management console, is that it shows you why customers are not willing to migrate their existing Windows applications, WinForm applications, to a modern web-based platform or mobile-based platform. You see all the white space? The controls, the standard controls, they have all the white space because they are optimized for touch. Do we need touch in an admin console for servers? Not necessarily. We hate white space because it requires us to scroll. And so this is the reason why not so many people like that kind of user interface. It's very powerful because it's a plugin concept that you can use. Wonderful, but all the different plugins, they fire up PowerShell commands, you see that? So it takes a while until it really shows the results because it needs to fire up the PowerShell commands. And this is a local thing. I'm doing that on the local machine, so I'm not doing a remote access to another machine. So you see it can take forever until I'm able to see this information. And this is assuming fast machine. So, and that's going to be a big problem here. So I wonder if that will be the success that Microsoft expects from it, because they want everybody to develop their own plugins that are compatible to this new concept. So the new, yeah.
Question on that. I don't know if you know, there's a bunch of standard Windows admin tools that are not supported in there right now.
Oh yeah, they're.
Oh, they're going to come in, or no?
Yes. That's a very good question. There's still a lot of admin tools that are not in there. Their goal is that they put all the admin tools into the new admin center. So there will be also an internal push to developers that they put everything in there. I don't think that they're happy about it. So the new remote desktop clients, it's amazing. In the past, we always had the problem that Microsoft did not support that many platforms, client platforms. These days, it really changed. A couple of years ago, they acquired an Austrian company called iTab. They developed the RDP client for Android, iOS, and macOS. And certainly Microsoft had a bunch of very talented developers in their corporate headquarters in Redmond that were not Windows people. And Eva Seidel, she was one of the founders of iTab. She is with Microsoft in Redmond still, and she is responsible for all the clients. So wow, this means the client development now is dominated by developers that are non-Windows platform experts. This is why we may see some of the features being released in a non-Windows RDP client first, and then next they're doing the RDP client that is supposed to be for Windows. So you see they have an HTML5 client now, they have macOS, iOS, Android, and they're trying to push the Windows 10 remote desktop store app, which is a universal Windows platform application. And I want to recommend, if you have not tried it out, it's worth trying out. It's very powerful now. They've invested huge amount of work into this client because they wanted to be the natural successor of the MSTSC standard Windows client that we are using today. If you look at the different HTML5 clients at the beginning that they published, hey, they look pretty much the same. The RDMI HTML5 client and another HTML5 client. The funny thing is, this is RDMI and this was Azure Remote App. So they were taking some of the code of Azure Remote App and reused it for RDMI. So the living dead. And so yes, they're reusing that code, but like I said, this is the new Windows 10 Store App client, and like I said, I have to admit, it's really good. Good performance, almost all the features that you have in the standard MSTSC client. Just go to the store, download it, install it. It's one of the few store apps that I want to recommend you install. So, now we are talking about a very tricky topic, Windows 10 as a virtual desktop. Who's using VDI, pure VDI? As a preferred, a primary environment? Who's using only VDI and no RDSH? Okay, there's a few. I have one customer as well right now. They're migrating entirely to VDI, which is kind of painful. So was it a smooth transition?
Yeah.
It was? Holy shit, you're the only one. We need to talk. Good to know. So most of the customers are struggling with the image management and all of these things. So the question is, how are we dealing with Windows 10 as a remoting client? The biggest problem that we have, there is this Windows Current Branch for Business. It used to be CBB, now it's this semi-annual Cadence, SAC. And on the other side, we have this Windows Long-Term Service Cadence, LTSC. We have Windows 10 in LTSC, yes, this is available today. But in most cases, you are on the SAC stream of all these things. This is when your machine regularly updates. And this is this sort of current branch that they want to use. And the survey, VDI Like a Pro, found out that Windows 10 64-bit is the primary platform that customers are using. And Windows 7 is declining, so more and more we have the Windows 10 situation out there. But what does it mean from a refresh cadence? Well, this is the refresh cadence. It took me some time to find out all these little details. There was a slide from Microsoft, there was a slide from Citrix, and I added some of my information in there. So the red ones are the ones that were the Windows 10 versions that were deployed in the past, and you see the release date, for example, November 10th, 2015, and then end of support October 10th, 2017, and then extended support April 10th, 2018. What ended just a good month ago, almost 2 months ago, and the update count is. This is what you encounter when you just boot up your Windows 10 machine and it tells you, oh, I need to update. So, no, it's not a major update. It's like these little things. It's up to 44 updates that happened on these boxes. How can you manage that in an enterprise environment? It's extremely hard to do that. But Microsoft says this is the preferred platform. If you want to run Office 365, which has this fast cadence as well, this is exactly the platform that you need. So this means for all our customers, we need to work on their processes that they're able to follow that cadence. And now we're talking about 1803 SAC. That is the current version that we have now. I have no information about how many updates we had already. That's going to be an interesting count in the end, because 1803 is the one that Microsoft uses as the beta platform for their server, upcoming server 2019. So if you download the technology preview of server 2019, 1803 is the the build of the operating system core. So they're trying out how far they can get with that core, so that it's the future core for Windows Server 2000.
There's already updates on 1903, I just installed.
Yeah, it's gonna be
No,
1809.
1903, I just installed, and there's already 3 or 4 updates on that.
Oh yeah, and 1809 is gonna be the core that they will be using for the server. That is the plan. But what does that mean for Windows 10? Are we gonna be able to use Windows 10 in the future a lot more than we use the Windows Server? And this is a slide that I stole from Citrix, from Dan Feller's session. What he did is he measured the CPU resources that were required if you were running Windows Server and one user in a Windows Server, and on the other side Windows 10, same core. And you find out sometimes it's 3 times more CPU that is required by Windows 10 over Windows Server 2016. Why is that? It's all the crap that Microsoft puts on Windows 10. I mean, if you install Windows 10 and compare it to a clean Server 2016 installation, you log in as an admin on both of them. You do not modify anything. You don't optimize anything. This is what you get. So it's like 3 times more resource consumption that you have on a Windows 10. And then there were these rumors that were spread from the Dutch market that Microsoft wants to move to a Windows 10 edition that allows multiple users to log on. The MVPs have suggested that Microsoft does that since many years. And well, the information leaked that Microsoft is working on that kind of technology. I don't want to comment on that. The only comment that I want to make is, do you know that Microsoft has their own Linux distro? Who knows that? And who knew before they released it that they have that? They were hiding that. There are only those people under NDA who knew that Microsoft had their own Linux distro. And sometimes you learn about these activities in Microsoft that they're experimenting. It's research that they're doing. If this information leaks, don't take it for granted that it's going to make it into the full product. It may happen, but it may not happen. So do not speculate about that. It's going to be Microsoft who makes the announcement, and so we need to be very careful in a community like here to speculate about things where Microsoft themselves are not sure if it's ever going to see the light of the day. So let's wait for that. But this shows you a clear reason why Microsoft may be hesitant of opening up a multi-user option for Windows 10. How do you control the resource consumption?
Did Dan have a slide version of this that was optimized without that stupid
We need the question is about, is there a slide with optimized?
Yeah.
No, he didn't share that, but this is something that we want to run in our labs.
Yeah,
we want
yeah.
to find out. So now after learning that, I'm like, whoa. I want to know the details.
That's not very fair.
Yes. So where are they going with the 2019 server? And like I said, they have this long-term servicing channel, and that will be the same for Server 2019. Which means the remote desktop experience and RDSH will only be available on the long-term service channel. Is that compatible with Office 365? No, it's not. You've seen the article that they're going to kill this combo in 2020. It's in February 2020 where you cannot run this combination of long-term service branch plus Office 365. What about the semi-annual channel for server? Only server core. Does that help us on the worker side? No, absolutely not. So suddenly everybody tries to put all their admin components on control components into server core. That makes sense. So it's like an RDMI light variant of the control plane, that makes sense, and you have the semi-annual cadence. But we are stuck here on the worker side with RDSH role. And this is really interesting, and I want to show you, I have installed the latest 2019 build that you can download. So you see, it says Windows Server Data Center version 1803. Like I said, this is the core that they're using for testing that. And it's kind of new. I've only installed it like 3-4 weeks ago. And but then if you look at the management overview, oh well, this is what we know. This is not different to anything that we've seen before. And the previous version of the technology preview, it came without the RDSH role. This is why everybody started speculating about, ooh, what is it going to be that Microsoft does? Is it going to be a revolution? And partners and customers started getting really nervous, and then Microsoft just added that, and it's exactly the same what it was before. Huh. Okay, is it interim? We don't know. We just don't know. It's very exciting times from that perspective, and I have the impression that Microsoft themselves, they don't really know. Like I said, they are on a tour through Europe right now to convince their key customers to stay on board with them. And I've never seen that happening before. That Microsoft goes to key customers to promote, hey, you stay with us, we are friends since so many years, please stay with us and follow us. And I know that I have customers that are threatening Microsoft to completely migrate away from Windows as a platform. So they already have many Android devices out there, and they said to Microsoft, we are negotiating with Google to migrate everything to a Google Android, Google Cloud platform. Wow, customers that Microsoft took for granted that they go with them. And we're talking about like 50,000, 100,000 users. So it's not like the small customers. Now what's new in Windows Server 2019? Well, high availability of the license server, really? And now you can manage the user CALs through Active Directory. Oh my God, who needs that? We have new performance counters. Yay! That's good if you do monitoring, but it's not a game changer. Per user Windows desktop search catalog. Wow, this is good. So finally, search is multi-user capable. Ooh, it only took them like 15 years. We have an optimized Windows Defender for that. Again, multi-user capable, and Admin Center. You have seen that, which is not as nice to use as we wish it was. What about the other things that I mentioned? Hard to say. It still is the fact that it's exciting as driving a bus. But there are so many people who need to take the bus. And it's our job to help them over the next years to stay happy with the bus. Okay, so we build in like nice screens into the front desk so that they're happy. We're making it more comfortable in the bus. This is pretty much the work that we're doing in our RDS Senap and Horizon and Parallels projects out there. So we will stay relevant. As soon as you are working with that technology, we will stay relevant. And we need to wait for Ignite, because I believe that Microsoft will use Ignite, which is in September, to make the announcement what they're really going to do with Server 2019 and Windows 10. This is what I have to share with you today. So the next speakers are waiting. Thank you for attending. I will be hanging around here. If you have questions, I hope I didn't demotivate you. So that was the Sunday morning session, and everybody's here like, oh my God, what have they done? Microsoft, please give me a roadmap. Nope, not available.
Bus mechanics.
Huh?
So you're calling everybody bus mechanics.
Yes, now you're all bus mechanics, and be the best bus mechanics in the world, please. Thank you.